Thanks for coming today, Iain. So today we're having an event called Democracy is Being Disrupted. Do you think that democracy is being disrupted, and what do you think of the opportunities?
I mean, of course it's being disrupted, because at the core of our democracy today is the vote. And the vote's a really simple mechanism. It's really easy to kick people one way or another. It's not something we think about, and anything we don't think about, it's pretty easy to nudge us with things that maybe aren't so true.
So what are the opportunities then? If democracy is being disrupted, what can we do about it?
I think the opportunity comes from most people only change anything when it's completely broken, and the closer we're getting to people feeling a real sense of I want to do something different, well, it's going to be a chance to explore new things, and hopefully it's a chance to explore many new ideas. We've got enough councils, gosh, just here in Sydney, where people don't trust them at all. Let's try different democratic processes, tools, approaches, and see if we can get somewhere to go, wow, doesn't my council make fantastic decisions? And I think anytime you've got an innovation opportunity, that's what this disruption is bringing us.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those innovations. Maybe you could give us one of the examples of your favourite innovations in democracy that you've seen here in Australia. And is there something that you really like that's happening around the world that we might emulate?
Sure. I'm going to start with the international one.
Okay.
What's not to like about Ireland? Ireland, I think, if you can look at a very religious country that manages to have 2 votes on marriage equality and then abortion laws, you have to look at how did people in elected office have the confidence to bring that up. And we've looked at what they've done, it's better than us. Actually having the Prime Minister's office with the capacity to refer things not to a Senate committee, but just to a group of randomly selected everyday citizens, and then having that as the basis for referenda. It's a nice multi-part approach, and, well, the proof's there. All of a sudden you've got a group of politicians able to address hard issues. Here in Australia, I have a really soft spot for the people in Geelong. They had a pretty dysfunctional council, and they got asked the question everyone wants to get asked: how can we do democracy better? How do you want to be democratically represented? What I love about it is one of their recommendations is it's frankly so clever, and it's something no academic has brought up, and it shows the wit and insight of people. And as a very concise summary, when you look at political donations and how to manage it, you'd probably see there's a lot of Senate committee submissions as to how you do it. And what they ask for is, well, why don't we disclose the amount of money on the ballot? What a great equalising measure. Really simple use of transparent, open information in a way that doesn't limit donations, just said, let us pick up a ballot paper and know who's got what. I really like those ideas coming from the bottom up in ways that encourage people to think and solve a problem.
So it sounds like it's very much about educating people so they can participate in more constructive and meaningful ways. I know that your focus is deliberative democracy. Would you like to try and explain what that means to some of the people who might be listening today?
Sure. I think our starting point is, with deliberative democracy, it's the gap between public opinion and public judgement. We have an opinion reaction to a lot of things. You come off in 10 seconds. Deliberation simply, can I get multiple sources of information and a mixed group of people to have equal share of voice? And if you put those 2 ingredients together, ideally you'll come to at least a more reflective decision. So when we look at, I think deliberation is a long spectrum. Anytime you can get people from 0 sources and 0 thought to even 5 minutes and a couple of other perspectives, which is a great realm for digital, I think that's the first and transformative step, just to challenge people a little bit, to say, no, we need to go past your opinion, we need to get you to think.
Yeah, we often talk a little bit about cognitive dissonance and the more participatory methods of democracy. How do we get people to realise that sometimes their values and what they say may not be totally in alignment? Or at least listen to other people's values and see if you can connect with them.
It's a fabulous example. One of the ones I've loved was from Infrastructure Victoria. Anyone who's looked at an election campaign will be fortunate to see that in a regional area, one of the wonderful things to pitch is, we'll build you a hospital. Now, believe it or not, you're better off not having a hospital built, because where do the good doctors live? They tend to live in nice, shiny suburbs in the city. So in a regional area, you should say, I don't want a hospital, I want a good transport link. And it's the difference between what we react and think we want. Who doesn't want a free hospital? Yeah. But then actually looking at, wow, these are the death and reinfection rates. I'm better off travelling somewhere else. And that's just how do we get people to think and not just react to the freebie offered in front of them? Well, the disruption of democracy going on today is making people realise, hang on, I am easily diverted by this thing over here. Let's give them incentives to think. We can't just expect people to do it for nothing. We need to find the incentives and structures where anyone goes, that's worth my time.
So you've facilitated and hired quite a lot of facilitators to get people to think through challenges, big complex policy issues. What have you learnt about the practice of trying to encourage people to think beyond their own opinion?
The number one thing is facilitators matter. It's going to be a large and expensive check for a lot of projects, but that specific skill of being task-based and looking at equal share of voice and frankly not being the star of the show, that is the number one success variable in a project. The really good operators do it impossibly well, and the really bad operators break projects because it's hard to give people the time they need to think through large complex issues. So clear instructions and a good pathway matters a lot. And that's really at the centre of what we see as the hard challenge to fix. How do we have 1,000 people out there who have the skill to do this?
Well, now that I've got you here, I just want to ask one more question. Independence. I mean, you've just talked about facilitators retaining that. What else is relevant when it comes to independence in democracy? Do you think there's a role for independent facilitation of democracy? I know that your organisation is an NGO, a charity, and it's founded by private philanthropic funding as well as government funding projects. What do you think the role of independence is in democracy?
I mean, we see it as important because we work from the starting point of, well, who would you trust to let you change democracy? Who would you trust to host a decision? We look at almost every interest group today and you tend to say, oh, they're a bit left-leaning, they're a bit right-leaning, and we judge it on every media outlet, every expert we hear speak. And that's why, for our starting point, we were very happy to have Nick Greiner and Jeff Gallup sit there and say they don't agree on a lot of policy issues, but they agree on the need to do democracy better. There's other ways to find that independence. I think retired judges are going to have a really interesting role to play. And so if you're hosting a digital conversation, potentially, and people are thinking, oh, are you editing things out that the government wants to see? There's no judge that's going to sign off on that. So there's many interesting ways to look at how do we achieve trust. And I think that is the galvanising starting point, more than anything else in terms of neutrality. Without it, we're just going to think conversations are staged to a preordained decision.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for the invitation.